Chris Eubank Sr. says that he will now take a step back in his son's career and allow his son to be center stage, be less hands-on. This is what he said at a press conference to announce his son's fight with Arthur Abraham today. Most of you have probably seen it. You've probably seen the interviews. This is something which a lot of people have been calling for a long time. They believe that Eubank Sr. has been a negative influence on his son's career and that he's been holding him back. Eubank Sr. obviously disagrees. He says that the reason he's stepping back now is because Eubank Jr. is built as a fighter. He's complete. His work has done. His work has been done. He's been building his son since he was a teenager, since he first started boxing, in a step-by-step process. And he keeps reiterating that Junior is not a fighter who's being built by a promoter. He's not a fighter that's being built by a businessman. He's a fighter who is being built by another fighter, which in his view is something very different, a whole different animal. A fighter who's being built by a fighter has a different mentality. This is what Eubank Sr. has been saying. To be fair, most fighters are built by other fighters. In a certain sense. I mean, they have promoters, but in the gym, they're usually trained by people who used to box themselves. Now, they may not be as dedicated. They may not even be as harsh on their fighters as Eubank Sr. was on Junior. Because according to Eubank Sr., he really made Junior have to walk through fire in his learning process, taking him out to Cuba to spar a heavyweight and take a beating for 3 rounds, sending him out to Las Vegas to cut his teeth in the very, very tough gyms out there, where walking into a Las Vegas gym as a teenage boy with an English accent, there would have been a queue round the block of people wanting to get in the ring with him and beat him up. That's the kind of hardship that Eubank Sr. wanted to put his son through in order to mold him as a fighter, physically and mentally. He says that work is complete now. Now he can let him off the leash and let him do his own thing. We'll see if Eubank Sr. is true to his word about that. Whether he really is going to allow Eubank Jr. to center stage. Maybe he will. I mean, I'm not doubting him here. I'm just saying. Proof is in the pudding. A lot of people would say that Eubank Sr. loves the limelight far too much to take a back seat. But today at the press conference, for example, when Eubank Jr. and Arthur Abraham did a head-to-head, Eubank Sr. was nowhere to be seen. They tried to bring him in, actually, to stand in between the two fighters. And Eubank Sr. said, actually, no, they're good. Let them do their thing. Let them have their face-off without me. So at the moment, he is actively trying to take a step back. My whole thing is, when it comes to Eubank Jr., is who's training him? Is it still his dad training him? Because his dad seems to be hands-on, at least when it comes to training. I know there's Ronnie Davis there as well. But that's always been my biggest concern. Now, I'm not saying that Eubank Sr. doesn't have a vast wealth of experience and knowledge to pass on to his son about boxing. But great fighters don't always make great trainers. So I'm not damning Eubank Sr.'s ability as a coach. I'm just saying it's unproven. Lennox Lewis, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, tried his hand at coaching fighters, and so far it hasn't worked out very well. Great fighters don't always make great trainers. In fact, more often than not, they don't. Some of the greatest trainers of all time were not great fighters at all. There's a difference between being able to actually fight yourself and being able to teach somebody how to fight effectively. It's different. So they're two different skills, actually, being able to teach and being able to do it yourself. Two different skills. Sometimes with fighters, what they do is instinctive. and they find it difficult to actually articulate what they do, because they're operating almost on a subconscious level a lot of the time when they're in the ring and they're throwing punches back and they're looking for this counter and that counter and they're setting certain things up. It's on a subconscious level almost, whereby they couldn't really explain what they do to you very effectively. They don't really self-analyze a lot of the time, fighters, enough to really, be able to articulate what they do. So, Eubank Sr. is a very articulate man, to be fair. Maybe he articulates it to his son very well. But Eubank Sr. had flaws as a fighter. He wasn't a complete fighter by any stretch of the imagination. He was a warrior. He was an excellent fighter, but he had plenty of flaws. Does he know all the flaws that he had, technically, as a fighter? Can he make sure that his son don't have the same flaws, or works on correcting those flaws if he has some of the same flaws? These are the things that you have to think about. I would like to see Eubank Jr. Ronnie Davis is an old man, with all due respect. I'm not sure how much input he has now in Eubank Jr.'s career as far as training him. But I would like to see somebody, it was a shame that Adam Booth walked away. But at the end of the day, there has to be chemistry in terms of how you get along with somebody. Eubank Jr., as his dad says, is somebody who will buck. He called him a stallion and he said he will buck. Some fighters are like that. Some fighters are hard-headed and they have a certain attitude about them, and you have to buck back. You have to be able to control them when they're like that. Mike Tyson was notoriously like that. And it took very strong-headed coaches to actually be able to handle him in the gym, because he would often want to do his own thing. So, I'd like to see an experienced guy come in and work with Eubank Jr., because there are certain things about his game which I'd like to see improved. Maybe they can't improve those aspects, but I'd like to see somebody at least come in and try, because then at least when they've tried, I can say, okay, well, maybe Eubank Jr. just ain't got it in him to improve these certain things, because all fighters have flaws. You can bring in the greatest trainer in the world. He's not going to be able to erase the flaws out of every fighter. There's no one-size-fits-all trainer in boxing. It's about finding a trainer that's right for you, that can make the most out of your ability. But he can never make you the perfect fighter. He can never take away every flaw. Anyway, let me not waffle on for too long. Those are my thoughts on Eubank Sr. saying he's going to take a back seat now in his son's professional career. Do you believe him? Do you think he will? Do you think it's a good thing? And what does taking a back seat actually entail? Does it just mean that he's not going to appear in photos with his son as much in the lead up to fights? Does it just mean he's going to let his son talk more in press conferences and post-fight interviews? Or does it mean he's going to take a back seat in terms of training him? Is he going to take a back seat in terms of the business side of it as well? You let me know what you think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.